What is up, guys? Frosty 0232 here today for another Frosty Features. Today we have the leader, the long anticipated, awaited, the Nightcrawler. Finally, coming in to lead our Extreme X-Men. Super excited. We're gonna hop in on that. If you haven't seen a Frosty Features before, what this is a comic book background on the tunes that you use in Marvel Strike Force, and I am here to guide you through the mess that is the X-Men comics. Okay, here we go. So according to Scopely, this is the description of who Nightcrawler is from the blog post. Kurt Wagner is the child of two powerful mutants, the precognitive Destiny and the infamous blue-skinned shapeshifter Mystique. Kurt was living with Romani and performing in a circus when his mutant abilities activated: night vision, heightened agility and reflexes, the ability to camouflage himself in shadow, and, of course, a unique form of teleportation. He joined the X-Men under his stage name Nightcrawler and fought for mutant rights and the fate of the world. So we will rate this description later as we get into it. And this is the man of the hour, the man with the plan, the Bamfer himself, Nightcrawler. Name is Kurt Wagner, depending on who you ask. First appearance, Giant Size X-Men #1, 1975. We will talk about that specific issue coming up. As far as X-Men's characters are concerned, as classic as he feels, he's not as old as most of them, right? Most of them are from the 60s. As far as when you think of like your kind of core group. But Nightcrawler's so famous, but yes, he hails from the 70s, the dirty 70s. Powers and abilities. So, Nightcrawler actually has a lot of like little powers. Obviously, the big one is his teleportation. His teleportation is not teleportation in a traditional sense, as the blog post pointed out. It's not unique. That's the only thing, and we'll get into it with the blog post, but that's really the only nitpick I have with the blog post. It is not unique. There are, I think, 3 other mutants that teleport the way he does, but he has DNA of Azazel, who is the lord of this brimstone dimension. So when Nightcrawler teleports, he's not like moving. He's not actually teleporting as much as he's dimensioning out to the brimstone dimension. And then in the brimstone dimension, it's connected like in multiple places to Earth or whatever. And also time works a little bit different. So he poofs in and out, and he does it so fast that he doesn't typically like perceive that he even goes to a different dimension, but he moves through this other dimension and he pops back into reality. So that's how his teleportation works. And then his camouflage, he is always slightly shadowed even if he's fully lit, and that's because at any given time his being is also partly in the brimstone dimension, which creates shadows all over him. He has I believe it's a prehensile tail. He has a tail that he can use like a hand, so he uses it to climb and to swing from things and to attack people all the time. So I put that he has a tail on there. It's good enough for My Hero Academia, so damn it, it's good enough for Frosty Features. And then he has microsuction skin. Ultimately, he is able to climb on. He's able to Spider-Man up on walls and things like that. And it's because he's got like suction cuppy pores. So not quite as abrasive as like a Spider-Man, but anyway, it gets the job done. Aliases: the Uncanny Spider-Man, you heard that right, and he goes by Spinning Man. So we'll talk about this, and this is relatively recent, and it all comes with all the new updates and things like that. So yeah. Affiliations. So Nightcrawler is all over the place as far as X-Men, pretty much. Not every X-Men iteration, but many X-Men iterations, you find Nightcrawler show up, and then he ends up having some sort of moral quandary, and then he leaves, and then he comes back. He is part of the Council of Krakoa, and he also joins Excalibur for a period of time, which we've talked about Excalibur a few times on Frosty Features. It's essentially British remake of X-Men. Background: he is German, born German, to his we'll talk about it a little bit, but his father his birth is super freaking convoluted. But Mystique is married to like a count, and his dad's name is like Christopher Wagner or whatever, and so he is German in that sense. He's raised Romani because he's given away. Who died? You can't be a superhero without somebody dying. So yes, Baron Christian Wagner, that is his father. Without his father, not in any biological way. But he dies. If I remember correctly, I'm having a moment. Let me know in the comments if I get this wrong. Mystique kills him. I'm fairly certain. Yeah, Mystique kills him, and because of that, Mystique sort of goes into hiding, and she gives up Nightcrawler as a baby. Flash forward in the feature, it's hard to say it without doing it. If you don't know it, Mystique is Nightcrawler's mother. Yes, one of her mothers. Yes, she dies, and then Steven dies, or Stefan, depending on how you read it. We'll talk about Stefan a little bit later, but right now, let's talk about who's his daddy, right? So this has been retconned and changed and changed and changed and changed. So I'm going to give you a quick whole thing. So when Nightcrawler's origin was brought up, Chris Claremont was leading the pencils. He was ahead of the writing, and he pitched that way back in the 80s, he pitched that Mystique and Destiny, they had a lesbian kind of relationship at the time, and he pitched that Mystique turns into a dude and gets Destiny pregnant, and Marvel was like, absolutely not, that's messed up, you can't do that. And recently they retconned it. So that was the original pitch, and then what it was Mystique was married to Baron Christian Wagner, and she wants to get pregnant, but he is infertile, so she is trying to court somebody. She is a lesbian, but she's, Mystique, so she's doing some manipulative stuff, so she's married to Christian Wagner, and she's trying to get pregnant, and she goes to Azazel, and she's like, yo, Azazel, I don't really care for you all that much, but let's do this dirty thing, and they did, and then pregnant, and then for years and years and years, Nightcrawler's father was Azazel. So now it's retconned that the Chris Claremont thing actually happened. This is very recent, like within the last couple of months, and as of the recording date. So it's been retconned. She did turn into a dude and impregnate Destiny, but in doing so, because she's not biologically a man, in her changing, she used some of Azazel's DNA to have Nightcrawler. So Nightcrawler is still sort of related to Azazel, but not in a conventional sense. So Azazel did have something to do with it, but he wasn't in the room, essentially. She just kind of copied it. Yeah, that's what it is. So yes, Nightcrawler's actual parents are two mommies, and that is Destiny and Mystique. Mystique was never actually pregnant with Nightcrawler. She faked a pregnancy to like deter people from Destiny, essentially. It's been retconned like 7 times. Like, welcome to X-Men, right? It's been retconned like 7 times, so it's like really hard to keep track of, but that's essentially all of that. That's where we're at. So he's got like 2.5 parents. Mystique, Destiny, and Azazel. The Brimstone Dimension. So I've already kind of given this away. So he transports, when he teleports, he transports to the Brimstone Dimension, which is it's headed by Azazel, his half-father. So another thing, Azazel has this thing where he's trying to have progeny that can use the teleportation situation where they can come through the Brimstone Dimension. That's his actual goal, is to have kids that do that. So with that, this is not a unique ability to Nightcrawler. He actually has a bunch of half siblings, and a bunch of the not a bunch of them, I think 3 other half siblings can teleport through the Brimstone Dimension. So it's worth noting. Moving on, relationships. Mystique and Destiny. We already kind of talked through almost all of these. Mystique and Destiny are his actual parents. Azazel, I wrote this down, you're welcome, as parentage contributor. So he had something to do with it, but he didn't. Margali Zardos is his foster mother. So this is the Romani, she's a Romani magician who Mystique brings baby Nightcrawler to, and he's raised in a circus by her. Yeah, and then he's got a bunch of half siblings, foster siblings, and step siblings all over the place. Because his parents got around. It is very well known. Mystique's all over the place. Azazel's obviously all over the place. And then he was raised with a bunch of other people. Alright, notable events. So I want to throw out here first off, Nightcrawler is one of those characters. Anytime things get complicated in X-Men, Nightcrawler shows up. So it was really hard for me to pick notable events. So I went ahead and we're gonna talk about his actual fight in the X-Men, which is it's essentially the events that happen in Giant Size X-Men #1, and then we'll talk about Uncanny Spider-Man. So here we go. So in Finding the X-Men, so he's growing up with this, under Margali, who is this wonderful Romani circus person. She has fostered Nightcrawler, and she has 2 of her own kids. Her own kids being Stefan, Steven, or Jermaine, or Jamani. Probably Jamani. I'm gonna go with Jamani. Jamani. So the real brother and sister, and then Kurt is their third sibling who's adopted, essentially. And they become really tight friends, but Kurt and Stefan become very, very, very close, like brothers, if you will. But Stefan said, as their kids, and by the way, Kurt's blue the whole time, right? No one's really sure why for a long time, until his mutant ability sort of comes forth, essentially. But as they're growing up, he becomes very close to Stefan, and him and Stefan are like, yo, we're kids, and you know what kids do? Kids become blood brothers, because we're not actually brothers, so we're gonna blood brother it up. Let's cut our hands, bro. I got 5 fingers, you got 3, let's put your blood into me, right? That's what they decide, and so they do blood brothers, and like, bam, I'm gonna say something kind of messed up, so be ready. I think I have evil in my heart due to some magic, and eventually, I'm afraid I will succumb to that evil. So if I ever kill anybody that's innocent, I need you to promise me right now over our blood brotherness stuff that you will kill me in the event that I kill innocent people. And Kurt's like, okay, whatever, dude. I'm like 12, but all right, that's the thing. So time goes on, and we've got Kurt, who is... I'm gonna make sure I get this in the right order. So we have Kurt. So Kurt, one of his big things, and you hear a lot about him, and you can find a lot of stuff. There's a whole arc where Nightcrawler becomes a pirate. I'm not going to talk about that today, but his biggest inspiration, his hero, is Errol Flynn, who is like this movie pirate, and he goes and sees all of his movies and stuff like that. So there is a situation. This is a big telling situation. He is raised in the circus. The circus people are much more accepting than regular folk, right? So he kind of finds his first taste of mutant racism. He sneaks into a movie theater to watch an Errol Flynn flick, and somebody sees him from the bottom, and they're like, demon, oh my god, there's a demon, and they start chasing him and trying to kill him, and he's running away. As a reminder, can't teleport yet. He's just very bendable, and he can jump around and stick to walls and stuff. So they're like, oh my god, it's a demon, and he's like, oh my god, they hate me because of how I look. What the heck? And that's like his first thing, and he goes back to his adopted mother, and he's like, yo, Madam Margali, what the heck is that? Like, what am I supposed to do? And she goes, you need to stand up against that. Like, that's something that you're gonna have to fight. You don't crawl away from things. You stand up. And so then she gives him more formal training as an acrobat, blah, blah, blah. So he's like doing trapeze and stuff. And then he's getting a little bit older. So he starts having this relationship. I don't think it ends up turning weird, but it's kind of weird with his adopted sister. So Jamani. So their relationship gets really close, and it's a thing. And they're trapezing one time, and she misses the trapeze. There's no net. She's gonna die. And Kurt's like, no, Jamani, don't do it. And then bamf for the first time, and he appears and catches her. And all of a sudden, he becomes, if he was already one of the best acrobats, he becomes probably the best one in history all of a sudden because he can teleport. So they start working that into the act, and he can now teleport, and that's a cool thing. And him and Jemani get even closer because he saved her. And, you know, oh my God, thank you so much. I was a damsel in distress. You saved me. And he's like, yeah, you're my sister, but that's fine. And Stefan's like, yeah, I don't like this. Time to bring up that thing I said when I was young and creepy again. And so he starts just murdering mutant children because he's jealous of their relationship, and he's a mutant, and he thinks all the mutants need to die. And Kurt comes upon this, and Kurt's like, the X-Men are involved in this, by the way. They're very roundabout, but here we are. So Kurt shows up, and there's dead kids on the ground, and he's like, hey, you shouldn't kill kids. And Stefan's like, well, you know, I'm not gonna stop, so what are you gonna do about it? And Nightcrawler's like, I'm about to beat the living heck out of you, bro. And he absolutely mops the floor with Stefan, and he does a superpower Nightcrawler kick, and he kicks Stefan in the chest, and Stefan gets knocked over, and he hits his head on a rock, and he dies. So, woohoo, Nightcrawler is the hero, but here's the problem, and this is how Nightcrawler gets separated from the circus. A random hunter comes out of the woods, and he sees Nightcrawler standing over the bodies of a few children and Stefan, and he's like, oh my God, that's a demon, and he just killed all those people. Let's kill him. And he gets a bunch of people, and they chase him through Germany, and he's running away. And lo and behold, as he's running, he runs into the X-Men. And Charles Xavier is looking for Nightcrawler, and he pauses everybody who's trying to kill him, and he's like, hey, I know you didn't do this. I can see into your mind. I train people like you to be the best that they can be in the army for me, right? Do you want to be an X-Man? And Kurt's like, yeah, get me out this piece. And they leave. And the rest, they say, is history. So, with that, jumping 40 years in the future, Uncanny Spider-Man. So this is our most recent kind of run. It's a five-issue series, limited series, with Nightcrawler appearing as a webhead, which is super cool. His design is super sick. So he is, you can see him in this picture. He is super cool. He's black and red Spider-Man, like kind of like Miles Morales, obviously having the tail. Because other than teleportation, he has he has a lot of similar powers and stuff to Spider-Man. A very important note comparing Nightcrawler and Spider-Man. Nightcrawler has those similar abilities, and he has a speed advantage because he can teleport, but he is much physically weaker. So that's something to keep in mind as far as Nightcrawler is concerned. He does not have the punch power, but due to his making up of speed, he's good. And also with that, so there's all sorts of different Spider-Mans out there, right? There's all sorts of different Spider-Mans out there, and they kind of take up different parts in New York, right? They sort of segment New York. So due to the fact, like consciously, it's brought up, Nightcrawler's like, well, Spider-Man doesn't do super well in Central Park, right? There's no buildings, and you can really only go between the trees. They're not that high, so you can't get that much momentum. I don't have that problem, so I'll be the Spider-Man of Central Park, right? And actually, the way it starts off, you see these robbers, and they're like, man, why doesn't anybody just cut through Central Park? Spider-Man can't do nothing in here. And that's when you first see Nightcrawler show up, and he's like, yeah, but I can. Me, Spider-Man, I'm good to go, right? So because he can teleport. So there's legitimately nothing that's stopping him from like getting around Central Park. So it's actually a fantastic kind of way it makes up. But you see him apprehend these guys steal a bunch of organs, like legit, like a box of organs. And they're trying to cut through Central Park to avoid Spider-Man. He apprehends them, takes him out, no problem. It's Nightcrawler, but we haven't quite discussed why he is a Spider-Man all of a sudden. So, anyway, you see him done, and he's eating pizza up on this, like, clock tower type situation, and he's, like, looking over Central Park, and then, lo and behold, Spidey, Peter Parker, shows up, and we find out that Spidey's like, yeah, I'm cool with you using the moniker and stuff like that, but, like, how long is this going to be a thing? Like, how long are you going to be in my turf as far as this is concerned? And dude's like, I don't know. So, what happened was, so this all takes place after a comic book arc called The Fall of X, which is pretty much what it sounds like. And before Fall of X starts, there's a situation. First off, if there's any major X-Men stuff, you have to put Legion in a box. Legion is a Marvel character that we do not have in Marvel Strike Force. He is ridiculously powerful, multiversal as hell, and in the event that there's a major event with Legion, you have to kind of write him out. So they write him out, and Legion and Nightcrawler are really good friends. So when you see Nightcrawler, and I think I brought it up before, maybe I didn't, this Spider-Man, this Nightcrawler has a sword. It's called the Sword of Hope, and it's essentially a piece of Legion that's left behind. They had to write him out, and more or less they killed Legion, and Legion left behind this. It's all of Kurt's hope. That's the whole thing is Kurt is hopeful and incorruptible because of his faith. He's very, very, very religious. And so he's got the sword that sort of embodies it. So anyway, before all that happened, in the midst of all of it, when Fall of X kind of goes about, Kurt gets brainwashed and he becomes essentially this demon, and he's used very similar to X2, the movie, where he was sent to assassinate these presidents, and he kills like 3 of them. And he's very ashamed of it or whatever. So he wants to kind of hide his face, but he still wants to kind of help out, which is why he ended up choosing to become this kind of Spider-Man character. He called himself Spin-A-Man. So he wants to figure his stuff out. And so this five issue series is when we see him run into Mystique, who was disguised as this man trying to hurt this like lady jogger. And he kicks the crap out of her, and he saves the lady jogger, and then Mystique kind of shows up and is like, where's my baby, because that's what the old man kept saying. And it's super crazy because in Fall of X we see the death of Mystique, so we're not even sure why she's alive. And following this immediately is where we get all of the unraveling and the retconning and stuff like that, where we find about Nightcrawler's now official, now true as of the recording date, parentage. Boom. So yes, that's what we've seen so far. I expect that we will see more of him as Spider-Man though, because first off, the design is sick. It's super cool. He gives away the Sword of Hope, which is kind of crappy, but anyway, to my knowledge, I think he is still with this costume and stuff, so I look forward to seeing a little bit more. I also enjoy the fact that he's just another section of New York. He's not replacing Eddie Spidey. Power level. So when it comes to Marvel Strike Force, they don't care about power level, but here on Frosty Features, we do. Now, the way that this works, multiversal means that you are a threat to all of reality, not just your reality, but all of the realities. You can topple the multiverse in a whim. Universal means you are a threat on a universal scale. Therefore, you can end your reality, perhaps hop on over to another one and end that one. Cosmic means you are a threat on a planetary scale. So on the small end, destroying things like planetary bodies, and on the high end, maybe taking things out like solar systems or galaxies. Nuclear means you have power equal to that of a nuclear bomb, leveling things like small towns up to a planetary body on the highest level. Super soldier means that you are a person that is beyond all human capability. You are past all of the peak levels that a human can reach. Baseline being Captain America. In the comics, they argue that he is the peak. I argue that there is no peak that equals that of Captain America, like legitimately, and you don't even see it in the comics, like somebody just training to be as good as Captain America. It requires drugs. So Super Soldier is past the peak of human. You could level something like a brick wall, or even with enough time and effort, maybe a city block. City, you are a human being that is trained to actual peak levels of human being. In Marvel, this is where we find a lot of our secret agents, our mercenaries, things like that. And then finally, there's Greg. Greg is the undead Asgardian spawned by Hela in Marvel Strike Force, and if he is on his own and left to his own devices, he is not anything in the ring, baby. So if I, the regular human being that Frosty happens to be, if I show up and I've got a syringe full of hot sauce and a can-do attitude, I theoretically could one-on-one combat Greg and win, right? So we are equating, due to undead Asgardian physiology, and just because I freaking want to, Greg, we're equating him to a regular human being level. And when it comes to the amazing Nightcrawler, we have somebody who is at a nuclear level. I really went back and forth on Nightcrawler. Here's why. His actual factual strength is not even super. So he pretty much has the strength of a fairly fit man. So in actual physical strength, we have him at definitely a city level. But everything else, all of his different powers put together, the camouflage and the teleportation makes him quite the threat. And the only reason why I would argue that he is a threat at a nuclear level is because if he were to bamf, and you see the possibility there, but he can bamf an entire field, an entire like area of people down all at once. So even though he's not leveling buildings, he could theoretically make that same impact as taking out a small town in a matter of seconds. So he was really tough for me to pick, but I think he has the ability to take out anybody at the super soldier tier if prompted to do so, especially with the hope sword, or the sword of hope. So it's really tough. He's either the very top tier of super soldier or the bottom tier of nuclear. I gave him the benefit of the doubt and put nuclear, but he does not have AoEs that sort of constitute it. It's kind of interesting. I'd love to hear in the comments what you all think of whether or not he swings super soldier or nuclear, or if there's a whole different thing altogether. Yeah. And then moving forward, according to Scopely, honestly, I was fairly impressed with this description. I don't think it's bad. The only thing that's wrong about it is them saying that the teleportation thing is unique, and that really is it's kind of a deep cut. You really have to kind of look into that and find that out. And it's rare enough that maybe 4 people in the Marvel Universe have it, Marvel Multiverse even have it, but it is not unique. That's my only thing, but outside of that, I think there's just enough detail here to give you an idea of who Kurt is, who Nightcrawler is. I honestly think this is one of the best blog post descriptions we've had about a character. So that was Frosty Features Nightcrawler. I hope that you all enjoyed it. There is so much Nightcrawler. Please let me know in the comments what your favorite Nightcrawler or least favorite Nightcrawler thing is, or if I just got something wrong. I would love to hear from you. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube. It doesn't cost you anything but a couple of clicks, and it helps out the channel so much. And as a reminder, I stream at the link above on Twitch on Sundays at 8 a.m. Central Standard Time, where we do Frosty Features live. I hope that you all have a good time. I hope that you all have a fantastic weekend. Most importantly, all, stay cool.